I'm not sure what's happening here. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tottenham Hour podcast on the eve of another embarrassing defeat for Tottenham. As it says in the title, we crash out of the FA Cup following a 1-0 defeat after extra time to Middlesbrough. We were hoping this was going to be a positive show after Saturday's 4-0 victory over Leeds, but we're going to go through both those games. We're going to go through a lot more that is going on at Spurs at the moment. But before we do get into that, we've got David Harris, the Irish Hotspur. As always, David, how are you getting on today?
Yeah, look, I'm just down in the dumps like every other Spurs fan. Look, it kind of feels like after the FA Cup defeat, the season's probably over. So, just down in the dumps like everybody else. But look, we got to see it through to the summer. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the sad part. Sim, how are you this evening after last night's calamity? I think you're mute.
You're on mute, Sim.
Is that better?
That's better.
That's better.
There we go. Just another one of those embarrassing nights being a Tottenham fan. We're getting used to them, especially over the past couple of years or 3 years or so. We've had a number of them, and that just adds to the long list. And to lose to a championship club in such an important game as well, only chance left of this season to win a trophy. And it's all right, if you go out to City or Liverpool, you can kind of just put that to a side and say, look, we'll beat him by a better side. But to go out to a championship side, man, it's so dejecting. And it's almost as if like the players didn't understand the importance. And it's almost like yesterday, they just let it pass them by, and it was another opportunity wasted. And it's countless. And it's nights like this that makes Harry Kane question his future. And how can it not?
Yeah, look, I think Harry Kane's future is something we do have to dive into, and we certainly will as the show goes on. But we have Ben here as well, who's grown his hair out for tonight's show. No, it is Danny Kiriakou, the bun. Danny, good to have you on the show in place of Ben.
Danny Kiriakou.
How is everyone doing? I mean, yeah, thank you for that, Matt. A lovely introduction. Brilliant. Nice to see you as well, Matt. I haven't been on a stream with you for a while. So, yeah, it's good to see you in a stream again. And I'm feeling all right, to be honest with you. I'm kind of like, it was just a normal thing for me yesterday. I kind of expected it. I was probably one of the few that was, some people may say negative, but I'm just being realistic. And I just had a feeling. I saw all the Spurs fans a lot of Spurs fans are positive, and I know people were like, yeah, we're going to win. But I just had that feeling. I could feel it. And as soon as I started playing, and I said, this is Burnley all over again. And then what happens? The result kind of ended the way a lot of us probably thought it would end, the way we were playing. So yeah, it's just embarrassing, really. It's a shame. Another year, no trophy. And I just pray that Conte stays in the summer. That's all I'm saying. I pray that he stays in the summer and he is back the way that he deserves and needs to be back to shape this team in the way he needs it.
Yeah, look, there's a lot to that, and a lot that we'll definitely dive into. And I imagine a lot of what we're going to be saying with regards to the rest of the season won't be overly optimistic. I just want to touch very quickly on the game against Leeds, which I think will lead us nicely into that game against Middlesbrough, because it's this up and down roller coaster and inconsistency, which I think is going to be the main topic of the show. But David, another manager we've got sacked. That's 3 managers this season that have been sacked after playing Tottenham. We can probably include Nuno on that list because I think the Spurs players were playing against him on his last game against United as well. But it was a good performance against Leeds. 3 goals in the opening half an hour. Job done. Harry Kane's son breaking that Premier League record. Saturday in itself was a very good day.
No, look, it was in terms of going forward, but defensively, look, I still have my concerns because, look, it was our first clean sheet we kept since we bet Watford at the turn of the year. So the first clean sheet we kept in, I think, 11 games. But look, if we're realistic with ourselves, they hit the post twice. Ben Davies put in a block to save Hugo's ass. They got 19 shots off at our goal, and it can't keep continuing. Look, I already knew that we were going to put goals against Leeds because they conceded 56 going into that game, the most in the Premier League. They were always going to concede goals, and with the talent we have, we were always going to pull them apart. Look, I got caught up in the victory just as like many Spurs fans did, and that's because we don't win much this season. But when you do look back on it, you have to take into consideration what I said about the amount of goals Leeds concede. They play in their hands, they press us, so they're leaving all that space for us to play into. It did play into our hands. But look, if we're being real with ourselves, the defence is a major problem in this team as well. Even though we have Romero, Dyer, Davies out there, we are still conceding goals. And it's not good enough. It can't keep happening. We can't keep relying on Son and Kane each week to outscore the opponents. At some stage, that defence is going to have to tighten up. And look, we got exposed yesterday yet again, by a team that are pushing for promotion. It's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. But look, that's what I took from the Leeds game.
Yeah, and I think it is an important point. Leeds, like you mentioned, they're a terrible defence. They conceded 20 goals in February, which is the most any Premier League team has ever conceded in a single month, and it's the shortest month of the year. So Leeds, they don't know how to defend. They're not good at that, and it's probably 99% of the reason why Marcelo Bielsa is currently out of a job. But Sim, they had a good chance from a free kick before we took the lead. Pascal Struijk hit the post. Very unlucky it didn't go in after that, and I think they hit the post with a free kick as well. We to be honest, didn't really look defensively solid in that game at any point, did we?
No, I think in terms of Leeds, they created some chances, but I did feel like we were in control of the game by and large. I felt like we had them where we wanted them for a lot. They did have a few isolated moments, like the free kick, but they never really, for me, sustained any sort of pressure on us that I was worried about. They did have isolated moments where there was a few slips and stuff, but I felt like we did have control of the game, and I think we were inviting them onto us. We were ruthlessly exploiting that space they left in behind, and whenever we went forward, we looked a lot more likely to score than they did. I think that's the reality of the situation. But fair enough. When Leeds will look back at that and think they definitely could have had a few goals. Dallas has that open goal which he takes an age to put away, and he doesn't put it away. They did hit the post a couple of times, but I think from a Tottenham point of view, I did think it was a solid performance. I did think we controlled it for the most part, and those chances came from isolated moments of play. But it is becoming a bit worrying that losing to Tottenham has become a bit of a benchmark now. And like if you lose, then you can get sacked. That is kind of like a lot of managers might feel like oh, if you're losing to Tottenham, you're in real trouble. Now we definitely need a change if you're losing to Tottenham. that seems to be what everyone's thinking at the moment.
Yeah, and it's those isolated moments that you're talking about there, Sim, where we do look vulnerable at the back, or we have a Hugo Lloris sprinting 40 yards off his line to be rounded by Stuart Dallas. And Danny, I think one thing we spoke a lot about, especially under that during the Jose Mourinho time, was that we played so defensive and we were afraid to press high up the pitch. We were afraid to really get out because we were so worried that if we did that and left the defence exposed to any extent, that we would be caught out. And I think that mixed with some of Jose's more defensive tactics were probably the downfall of that tenure. But do you think it is that is making us sit back in some games, the worry around the defence, or do you think it's Antonio Conte and just the way he wants to play?
It's a difficult one to pinpoint. I think it's a bit of both, right? I think it's a bit of the players that don't have the quality to do what Conte wants them to do, and I think it's Conte trying to utilize them as best he can, because if he really tries to play the way that he wants them to play, maybe it'll be like a bit more like even more pragmatic, like how we were under Jose Mourinho, where we would really struggle to put the ball in the back of the net, even more so than we are in certain games when we play against teams with a low block, because we've seen what happens this season whenever we play a team who have a low block, we just struggle to find any answers anywhere. We just can't break a team down, and the players we have in the team, they just don't have that creative impotence to kind of just really affect the final third in the way that we want them to. And it's like we seem to play better when we're playing on the counter attack, but there are certain times where even if the team has the ball more than us, we still, because of the lack of quality and the confidence issues that some of the players that we have, they just kind of, I mean, you saw it. I know we won't speak about it now, but you saw it again yesterday, where some players just cower away from certain moments, and it's like, what are you doing? And it's like, really, what are you doing? You're a professional footballer, and I think it does. I mean, I'm a big believer in that you can change the manager no matter how many times you can change it. You can bring in Jesus Christ from the dead. You can bring in just anyone you want to motivate these players. Martin Luther King, try and motivate these players, and even he won't be able to motivate these players. So, I mean, look, it's damning that so many managers have failed to try and get these players to get a tune out of them on a consistent basis. So, it is a quality thing, and I think he's trying to implement his style with what we have. But the problem is, the players can't do that on a consistent like period. They can do it on the one-off game or like one every other game or something like that. But and it is, I think you might have mentioned it, Sim, or someone mentioned it before, maybe on this morning, that it's when we seem to have 2 games in a week, we just can't. We just don't have the squad depth to handle it, and our players just can't play the way that we want them. Conte wants them to play in 2 games in a week. So I think if we've got 1 game in a week, I think they seem to do a lot better. But yeah, it's definitely a lack of quality from what I believe, anyway.
Yeah, look, you mentioned there that, chopping and changing the manager all the time won't necessarily help. And Jaden Rinier puts in the super chat there, says, how can we expect to have consistency when we have had 5 managers in 3 years? Impossible for the players to learn a system or patterns of play. So it's not even that there aren't positives to that, but there are negatives that come with it. Yeah. And I think it's just the nature of modern day football that, if there's no instant results, or as we saw with Poch at Tottenham and Bielsa at Leeds, in your first bad spell, you can be cut. And that's just the way it goes. It's not saying that's right, but it's just the way it is at the moment. And look, that'll lead us nicely there, your points and consistency, into that game against Middlesbrough last night. Dave, look, we've spoken about it a lot. Everyone's spoken about it a lot. To lose to Chelsea, Southampton and Wolves, then go and win against Manchester City, then lose to Burnley, then win 4-0 at Leeds, and then to lose to Borough. Is this what you're expecting for the rest of the season now? 1 win, 1 defeat, up and down kind of a couple of months?
Yeah. Look, you look at the past evidence. I think what we've won 7 we've lost 7 out of the last 13. Under Conte, it's not looking good. But look, it's not the manager's fault. I mean, we always talk about maybe switching tactics. We talk about switching players. He's got to get the best out of these players. But the reality of the matter is that no matter who's come in, cannot get any more out of these players. We've seen the inconsistencies under Jose. We blamed it on his man management style, this, that, and the other. But like once we've got rid of a couple of players, we do realize that like it is the quality is being exposed more than ever now. Like last night, we were asking the exact same players that put in that performance against Leeds to play last night. The exact same players, more or less the exact same formation. Go and do it. This is Middlesbrough. Go and play your stuff, strut around the pitch, and do your thing. And we didn't do it. In fact, we sat back most of the time, and Middlesbrough were just happy to pop it around the back line, and we were happy to let them do it. Yep. And the onus was always going to be on us to go at them and go and try and take the ball off them and expose them. And we just didn't seem to get to grasp with that. Now, is that because we're tired? Is that because we didn't want to do it? Is that because of the instructions of the manager? I'm not sure. But, like, you're just looking at one of them players. Grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Do something about it. Don't sit there and accept it. Do something about it. And nobody wants to do it. Like, we talk about Tottenham being able to struggle to break down teams that sit low block and stuff like that. The only reason why we struggled to break them down last night, like we did have chances, we didn't take them, first of all. The only reason why we really struggled to break them down was because of us. It wasn't because they were good at the back. Anytime we got our final pass right, we opened them up. But how many times did we see the first touch being poor, sloppy passes? We were the masters of our own downfall yesterday. This inconsistency can't keep happening. You look at some of the passes that were played against Leeds United. Jesus Christ, I mean, I was sitting there jacking off to them. I saw them on Pornhub that night. Some of them were that good. But then you look against Middlesbrough, and you're looking at some of the highlights, and you're putting clown music with it. This is Middlesbrough. No matter how much they sit back, you should always be beating a team like Middlesbrough. We shouldn't be going into this, this is a potential banana skin. And don't get me wrong, I know they also knocked United out of the cup. But let's be real, this is Middlesbrough. Too many players are just happy to kind of accept what's going on, or they react too late, but they don't want to do anything about it in the process. With teams sitting back, look, teams do it to Liverpool, teams do it to City and stuff like that. But what they have is players that can't contribute in them sort of games, that maybe who might not score in the other games when they're open. But when it's a close game and all their best players are blocked off, you have players deeper, wing-backs, centre midfielders who can take the game by the scruff of the neck, have that shot that gets that goal or whatever else, that bit of trickery. It comes from somewhere else. We do not have that in this team. We are solely reliant on Son and Kane. So many people yesterday, no doubt, would have been screaming, take Son off, take Kane off. They're absolutely useless, correct. Yes, they were useless yesterday. But we can't afford to do that, because if anyone's going to get the goals, it's time and time improving. It's one of the two of them. But there are also two bollocks to go and get them goals to make something happen. So where's anyone else stepping up? We can sit here after this game and criticize Son and Kane all we want. We can sit there debate, are they world class, are they not, this, that, and the other. They're world class. They've proven it for years. They are world class. But what we should be asking is, who's willing to step up behind them? Where's the goals coming from? If they are tired, if they maybe are having an off day, because every front three has an off day. Liverpool's front three have off days. City's front threes have off days. But when they have off days, they have other people that can step in. Yeah. And that's where they get that sort of consistency from, because they have other players deeper that can step in. We do not have that.
It's the competing as well, right? Yeah. It's the competing. When you've got the players to compete with that position, it raises your game more. But Son and Kane, they haven't got anyone to compete with close enough to their level. Not even close.
Not even close. That's the thing. City, Liverpool, Chelsea, if they've got players, it doesn't matter. It can be any player in their team. If they're not playing well, they can come out. Unfortunately, we can't do that with Kane and Son. We just can't take them out. We can't. It doesn't matter how bad they can be having the worst game in the world. We can't take them out because there's just no one to come in. Yeah.
You saw on our bench yesterday, if Harry Kane comes off, who are we going to bring on?
Scarlett.
Scarlett. If we take off Son, Mora was injured. Bergwijn was the only other player. And if you take off Son, you bring on Bergwijn, then that's it. And you got no one else. Like, it's so bad. It's the over-reliance on them two players. And it's not their fault. It really isn't their fault.
But as well, like we can't also forget about the fact, like we can all say to him, oh, he has to make changes. But think back to Southampton, think back to Wolves, think back to Burnley, think to yesterday. He made changes. What did the players off the bench do to affect the game?
Nothing. Yeah, I agree.
Nothing.
I think the worst part.
Yeah, go
ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I think the worst part about when that lineup came out yesterday, we saw Son, we saw Kane, we saw Kulusevski, a front three that just beat Manchester City 10 days ago. We saw, Christian Romero, Hugo Lloris. It was a strong lineup, but I can guarantee every single one of us, when we looked at that midfield and saw Pierre-Emile Højbjerg with Harry Winks, we were all concerned. We were all concerned. And we're playing a team who were 8th in the championship. As big a club as we are, as good as we want to be, we can't be completely destroyed and made incompetent by 2 injuries to Rodrigo Bentancur and Oliver Skip. I have a tweet here from Premier League Panel, at Premier League Panel on Twitter, say, Winks and Højbjerg have big flaws in their defensive positioning. This was first clear in a Southampton loss with El Yunusi and Armstrong finding too much space, and it has continued. Skip closes space in Conte's mid-block much better, and his injury is why Spurs' defence has now declined. And even looking at that goal last night, where that came from, Middlesbrough finding that space in there. Davis gets dragged out into that space to try and deal with things. Then Dyer is dragged across. Then Romero is dragged across. And I'm sure we've all seen. Yeah, Emerson don't know what he was doing, although I never have known what he was doing. But it's that midfield is where all of our issues start and finish, both defensively and offensively. It's really just not good enough. And Danny, I'll come to you in this. We all know everybody's thoughts on Harry Winks, but what has happened to Højbjerg? He was the player that was dragging this team through the tough parts last season. He was the one, flying into these tackles. He's getting up and celebrating them, and we were loving everything he was doing. But he's a headless chicken this season.
Do you know what, Matt? I'm glad you asked me this question, right? Because I have my views on Højbjerg, right? I know David has his opinions on Højbjerg as well, and so does Sim, right? For me, Højbjerg, I think, again, is another player who I think is great for this squad, right? But he's not a player who can be a first team regular week in, week out, who's going to get us to a level to compete for the top 4 or to challenge for trophies, right? I think he's a great player to have if you're playing with better players in the midfield. So, for example, if we had a Dembele with Højbjerg, I think he'd be great. I think you could play him further up the field. He could do more damage further up the field. He'll press more. He'll win the ball high up the pitch, and he'll help, right? But when you play him with someone of Winks' ability, someone who's even worse than him, it just the guy was yesterday. What I saw yesterday, right, from Højbjerg was he was trying to do everything. He was trying to do everything, but nothing was coming off for him, right? And that's because he had no support from Harry Winks. Harry Winks was just leaving space open time after time. He was cowering from the defense. He was cowering from what his job was supposed to be doing. I mean, I saw him literally, like, you see, when we were trying to attack, right, you could see him. You can see Winks just hide behind a Middlesbrough player, and you're like, what are you doing, mate? And you wonder why Højbjerg had no options, and he kept playing it back because no one was making any other efforts or runs for him to allow him to pass forward. Now, Højbjerg, I think I think he's a great squad player, but again, he's another player. I think he's overutilized, he's overused because we haven't got any other option. And it's not a detriment to his level. It's a detriment to how far the squad's level has fallen, because what I compare him to, and this is why I keep saying this, right, on streams and whatever I say it to, or whoever I say it to, is that you have to compare the prime Poch team to the team we have right now, right? Højbjerg, if he was in the prime Poch squad, right, he would not get in ahead of Dembele and Victor Wanyama. He would not. He's just not as good as them, right? Højbjerg is a player who's good at a lot of things, but he's not great at a lot of things, right? Højbjerg, on his day, can be a very good player, right? He can play some brilliant balls, right? But he's not a player who can consistently play at that top level, right? And that's where you deem him from a very class player to a good player, and which is why I think he's a good player. And I think that he's someone that we need to have in our team. But because of the over-reliance and because of the quality of players that are playing next to him, right? When he plays with a Winks, he just looks so far off it. And as soon as we've seen it time and time again this season, whenever he's played with Winks in the midfield, he's just looks so poor. And as soon as he plays with like a Bentancur or someone else, he just looks so much better, right? But I reckon, right, if you have a midfield three of Højbjerg and two really good midfielders with him, I think he'd look so much better, and it allow him to do a lot more than what we're all seeing right now.
Let's just make one thing clear. Sorry, Sim. Actually, sorry. Go on.
No, go for it, David. I want to hear what you're going to say. Actually,
I was just going to say, look, let's make one thing clear. Højbjerg is not the problem at this club, and I mean anyone that tries to have the conversation that he is the problem, you're speaking absolute nonsense. Harry Winks is the major problem. You look in the first half, everything that with Middlesbrough done good came down their left-hand side. Completely down the left-hand side all game in the first half, and that was Winks' side. Now, in the second half, I don't know if people noticed, but Winks and Højbjerg were switched for a little while. Where did they start attacking? Down that side where he was switched to. He is the major problem in this team. Look, as much as people give out about Højbjerg and stuff like that, look, I liken it to the Poch team. You want the ideal pairing of someone that can either take a ball and bring you up into the half like Moussa Dembele could, or having a ball player, and then having someone like Wanyama who will go around and win the ball. And that's what Højbjerg does. Now, just because we lack that other player in that other position, it doesn't mean we should be putting it all on Højbjerg. We know Højbjerg's not that player. When we first brought him in here, he wasn't brought in to be that flair player. He was brought in to provide the steal beside Ndombele because, yeah, we were doing okay, but we had no steal there and we were all crying out for it. And that's what we brought Højbjerg in to do. So let's not forget that. Just because the other pieces of the puzzle aren't in beside him, let's not make him the problem when he's not the problem.
I completely agree with that. And I think people digging out Højbjerg, I think Højbjerg yesterday actually did the dirty work pretty effectively. I actually think he was winning the ball back in actually some good positions. I actually think he was doing it on a consistent basis as well. The problem is, as Danny was saying, I think the stat was Harry Winks won 0 ground duels yesterday. 0, like none.
0 air
he was dribbled past, I think 5 times. They said, or something like that. How Højbjerg? Look, you can actually get away with that if you have someone like N'Golo Kante next to you who can be like 2 players. Højbjerg can't do that. He can't cover that much ground. He can't cover that much space along the midfield. So he needs help from his centre mid next to him. If Winks is getting overrun and dominated like he was yesterday, look at Johnny Howson, how he completely dominated the midfield and was able to control the game. We couldn't get near him because they had 3 centre mids in midfield and Winks was a complete passenger. So Højbjerg pretty much had 3 centre mids to deal with on his own. And then for me, when it comes to Højbjerg as well, we saw it, like, for example, against Leeds, that brilliant assist he gets. When he gets time and space on the ball, he can actually pick out a pass. He's a pretty decent passer, and I don't have a problem with him. When he's in the hustle and bustle of being a central midfielder, when a lot more often than not you're not getting a lot of time on the ball and people are pressing you and it's going 100 miles an hour. He can be on the ball. He can be very imprecise. He can be a bit sloppy, and we've seen that many times. Yeah. And that's why he's not our best. You don't want him as your most creative player, and you don't want him as your most offensive midfielder because if you're really looking for someone who's going to take the ball by the scruff of the neck and not care who's coming towards him and be appreciative of where the space is and go towards it, and then not only that, weave in between a player and then play a pass in the final third. He's not that kind of player. He's as Danny said, he's like a jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of Højbjerg. He's quite good at a lot of things. He's great at nothing. That's the kind of thing with Højbjerg.
Yeah, and
sorry.
No, I'm just saying. And now, yesterday not yesterday, in the January transfer window, we've let go of Ndombele Lo Celso, which no one has a problem with. But now we don't have any people who are comfortable in tight spaces and with good quality on the ball. Yeah. And that's what we have. Like everyone's saying, we need Skip and Bentancur, and fair enough. I do think they'll probably given us a better performance than we had yesterday. But it doesn't change. I don't think we start playing free flowing football just with Skip and Bentancur in the team. I don't think that happens. We need more. We need good technicians in central midfield. We need a Jorginho. We need a Gundogan. We need a Thiago Alcantara. We need someone like that. We just don't have that in the squad. We don't have anyone like that at all. And that's why when teams are aggressive against us, like Middlesbrough were and like Burnley were, unless we don't have that magic to open them up, and we're very, very, very easy to play against. The only time we do is Harry Kane dropping deep, and then we actually look creative. And then we look good, but he can't pass to himself. That's the problem. If he could pass to himself, we'll be fine.
It's true. But do you know what else I noticed with Højbjerg, right? And I don't know if you guys have noticed the same thing, but whenever he plays with Harry Winks, right, you always see his confidence level maybe is not as high as what it usually is, right? If he plays with, like I say, a Bentancur, or when he plays with Skip, right, he feels more confident in his own ability, and it allows him to be more expressive, and he's not as like scared or nervous. But when he plays with Winks and he has to feel like he has to do everything, as soon as Middlesbrough started pressurizing us and putting pressure on him, he gets a bit like he can't deal with high pressure, like when they're in his face, because he's not technically as good as, say, someone like Bentancur is, right? He's just not. But I think that's where I feel that he needs to play with better players around him. If he plays in a team with Bentancur and Skip in a midfield three, I think you'll see the best of Højbjerg's ability. Or even if you have, say, next season, just say for argument's sake, we get like a Barella, just say, for example, right? If he plays with like a Barella and a really good defensive midfielder, I think you'll see the best of someone like Højbjerg. But when you play him with someone like Winks, you're never going to see that, because he has no trust or no faith in Winks, because he's such a shit footballer. And it's just, do you know what I mean? And that's why there's all this focus on Højbjerg. And like I said, I've never been one to say I want Højbjerg gone or anything like that. I've always said I think Højbjerg is a great player to have at Spurs, especially as a player you can utilize. But as soon as you start relying on him, when you've got players like Winks, it just won't work. It just won't work, because he just can't do everything by himself, because Winks won't do the work to compensate him and to help him out. And you saw it yesterday. You saw Højbjerg running to the right wing. I saw him running to the left wing. He was trying to cover all sorts of ground. And every single time I saw Winks, he was just standing there. He was literally just standing there. And like, what are you doing?
Like, the thing is, like, we have to remember, being in centre midfield, it's always been a partnership. We're having to go at one guy because he can't do everything. But what about the other guy? When I look at a game and we're not doing well in centre midfield, it's very easy just to look at it and go, both centre midfielders are crap, this, that, and the other. But when we're not doing well, what I look for is someone that continues to do the right things. Even though it's not coming off for that, I look at someone who continues to still do the right things. Like Danny alluded to, Højbjerg was still pressing. At times, he actually even went further ahead than Harry Kane to press. In the second half, he also was looking around at the team, going mad at them, telling them all to push up and stuff like that, because he wanted them to press. And the thing is, Højbjerg is doing all the right things. Winks yesterday, he could have, Sim said he had 0 ground duels won. He would have won one, but he pulled out of it. There was one stage he pulled out of one. He offered nothing going forward, and he offered absolutely nothing defensively. He was just a passenger. And this is what I've been talking about all the time when it comes to Harry Winks. But look, let's not scapegoat the performance just all on Harry Winks. It's the whole team as a collective. Mm-hmm. Everybody was off. But, like, let's just... I get why people get frustrated about Højbjerg, but every centre midfield has always been about partnership. You go back to some of the great ones that have held the Premier League for a long time. Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, two complete different players. Paul Scholes was the passer but could get stuck in, and Roy Keane got stuck in, won the ball back, and gave it to everyone else to go and do the magical stuff with it. He knew his role. Every midfield has had that down the years. Every midfield, every top team in midfield across Europe has a player that can play football and another player that can win the ball. Every team, every successful team has it. It's a partnership. We all know Harry Winks' problems. We all know he's not good enough to be here. But let's not put them on a player that has done his job since he's come here, which is turnover but.
I think the main thing to take from that is we could put Harry Winks in the midfield with Roy Keane and Zinedine Zidane, and we'd still struggle to get in the Conference League. Jay Keaveney there in the live chat says quality analysis, lads. And look, I think we could sit here and talk for hours and hours about the midfield, about Højbjerg, what he has, what he lacks, about Winks, what he has, what he lacks. And as much as I'd love to do that, there are, as David mentioned, there are other players that underperformed. So every player on the pitch underperformed, but a big issue at Spurs at the moment is the wing-back areas. And early on in the game, the wing-backs were heavily affecting it in a positive way. Doherty and Sessegnon both getting on the ball, both getting into very, very good positions. But as the game kind of went on, they both got quieter and quieter. And then Emerson Royale came on and he didn't do much. He arguably played a big part in the concession of that goal. But has there been any positives from the last couple of weeks you can take with those wing-back positions, or is it still something that heavily needs to be invested in the summer?
Look, they did well against Leeds. I'm not gonna sit here and say they were terrible that game, and they did well. But that was tailor-made for them. There's all the space for them. Where they really earn their money is not in those games, but when they're asked for the quality to get out of them. When like yesterday, when the central areas are all clogged up and there's no way through, and we're forced wide, a lot of the pressure goes on them to come up with some quality from wide areas, little passes, crosses into the box, something. Even arriving at the back post, but they weren't able to do it. Look. I actually think Doxy was probably for the hour he was on the pitch one of our better players, but it just goes to show how bad we were when one of our better players missed an open goal when they put it in Rome Z from with an empty net. Then he was one of our better players. That goes to show that the quality yesterday was that poor. We've got a massive issue at wing back. We knew that in January. One good performance against Leeds isn't going to change that. I think on the left-hand side, it's not perfect, but it's more doable than on the right hand side. On the right hand side, it's a car crash. It's horrific. Aurier would walk into this team. Let's not be around the bush. Aurier would walk into this team right now. We cancelled his contract, and he would be our best right back. That's a fact.
Right wing back as well. Perfect for him.
Absolutely. Like there's no doubt about it. Aurier would be Trippier. We let go. Trippier as well, when he would easily be our best right back. We have the trajectory of our right back since Walker is like that, like just straight, not even like a slow decline, just like straight down. Like we are horrendous in that area, and teams are targeting it every single game. They're targeting those areas, and given that it's such a big way how Conte likes to attack, it's hindering us massively. Whenever we get the ball out wide to the right hand side, it always breaks down. Especially when you have someone like as much as I appreciate that Doherty's not playing that bad at the moment, he's not a player where he's going to attack space when he has the ball effectively. He doesn't have the pace in him. If you get him in a position where he's going on the blind side of the defender and he can become free in the box, then he'd become effective. That's what he did for Wolves. But if you ask him to collect the ball on the halfway line and drive on the right and drive into space on the right hand side, you got the wrong player. Now Emerson could potentially do that, but then he's got absolutely nothing on the end of it. Whereas Doherty might, if he got in the position, Doherty could come up with a good cross or a shot or something. Emerson has absolutely zero quality, and he's the most brain-dead footballer I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen a player make the decisions he made, like when he came on yesterday. I've been a guy who's been very patient and been backing up Emerson a lot, but what I saw yesterday when he came on really made me question, like why I'm bothering, because he made some absolutely diabolical. I'm not even talking about the offside. There were just things when he was on the ball, just making the complete wrong pass, not even thinking about what he's doing, like passing to absolutely no one and doing nothing. And this is a player who is supposed to be a right back with a bit of pace, trying to create something. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. I don't know why he doesn't play regular. Came on with like 10 minutes to go, but he seems to have not trusted him or something. I don't know what's going on there. He doesn't want. He'd rather put Doherty out on the left sometimes and play Reguilón for some reason recently, which is a bit worrying. But for sure, wing-back was my number one priority in January, and we didn't address that. And Traore's got 4 assists already for Barcelona. He's flying, and we let that deal just go. And he could have been brilliant. He would have been perfect for our system. Absolutely
Sim,
perfect.
I've been saying it. As soon as we got linked to Troy, some fans were saying, no, he's not good enough. And I said, I'm telling you now, this guy in a Conte system would rip it apart. He would rip it apart because he would have the cover from the defense, to let him go and do what he's good at, basically, in attack. And look, he's proven it. He's 4 assists already. I mean, that's more than what all our wingbacks have probably got all together. I don't even know how many assists our wingbacks have got, but I mean, yeah, I mean, look, do you know what? When you're talking about Emerson, right? It was so funny. Yesterday, there was one moment, Sim, that just made me think that exactly what you're thinking, right? Where I've been a very patient one with Emerson as well. I've always said, look, give him time. But what I've seen is every time he's coming on now, it's like he's getting worse and worse every single time. And yesterday, there was one moment where we were on a break, right? And he just kicks the ball up or something. And it's like, it literally was no one.
On the halfway line, I think we had like 3 options. He just boots it nowhere. It's like, what is going on here? How is he a player?
Oh my God.
Barcelona, how is this possible? I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, man.
It was literally that moment of think, nah, this guy is actually just awful. He's terrible. He needs to get out of this club as well. And do you know what the worst thing is? I can't believe I'm saying this, but Doherty, right? Yesterday, when he went off, the whole we just got worse in the way we played. I think he was probably, and he didn't even have a great game, right? But he was probably the most energized player out of everyone, like trying to make things happen. And for that open goal, right? I mean, he didn't look up properly, because if he looked up, he would have saw Son, he would have passed it. That would have been the right option. But he tried to go for it, and he was overconfident and obviously mishit it and went underneath the ball and completely skied it. But apart from that, he actually had a decent game, and I can't believe I'm actually sitting here saying that Doherty made a complete difference to our team yesterday.
Yeah, and also I think the wing backs, just quickly, I think the wing backs as well has made us so easy to play against, because people just know you just clog up the central areas, you put 3 in the centre mid, and that's it. It's game done. We got nothing.
Yep.
Just for me, one of the worst things about Emerson, and my God, there's a lot of them, is I feel like Romero was wasted when he's playing alongside an Emerson Royale, because what we need in this team, and what Conte's always had in his teams, you look back at his Inter Milan time and what Alessandro Bastoni did on the left-hand side, what we need Romero to do on the right-hand side is to be that defender who can step out of the back, who can carry the ball forward. You know, we're not expecting him to do what Joel Matip does every other week and run the pitch himself. But we've seen how much he likes to step out of that defensive line. And times against Burnley, he was playing as a striker. And it's absolutely ridiculous that that's a thing, but it works. And he's good at, he can get a possession up there. He's also a very talented defender in that press when we do utilize it. But when he's there covering Emerson, he can't do that, because we can't afford to have a player missing there. When Emerson is going to, at some point he's going to go for a header and accidentally run down the tunnel. It's Emerson. You can never, you can't put a line on what he's going to do, but there's just nothing good about him at the moment, and it's really upsetting to see. But one thing that is really good, we do have Bobby in the live chat put in a super chat. Bob's for TV says, big love, peeps. Glad to confirm I'm not on any oxygen support. However, need it when I watch Spurs play. Great show. Massive thanks for the support. Bobby, absolute legend. I know everyone has said it to you 100 times, but it's so good to see you back. And I have to say, one of my favorite ever moments on YouTube came last night with your comment about Spurs. If you haven't seen it, you got to look back at the fan show. Honestly, I watched it back 20 times today. It was absolutely hilarious. But we all knew you were never going to lose that sense of humor. It's so good to see you in here. But back to the negativity. Danny, what other players do you think embarrassed themselves on that pitch last night? If all of them isn't your answer.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of them. I mean, I think look, Son had an awful game. He was terrible yesterday. And look, there's a lot of reasons. Son has always been a bit of an inconsistent player. He goes through patches. He does this every season. And it kind of got a little bit better in the last kind of couple of years where he's been really a really top player. But again, he still has these patches. And
but Danny, just quickly, doesn't it tell you how good he is? Where he's having an iffy patch right now, but in his last 11 games, he's got 6 goals and 4 assists.
It does. No, it does. It tells you how good of a player he is. But fans forget that he has one bad game or a couple of bad games. He's like, oh, Son's shit. And it's like he's not. He's a top player. He's one of the best wingers on the planet, right? And he does a lot for us, right? Whether that's an assist or whether that's a goal, but the problem is why fans get on his back so much is because our team is an average team without Son and Kane. Without Son and Kane, and you could probably say Romero and then maybe Lloris. Without them players, we are a bang average team. and we haven't got players to replace them when they actually need to have a break. They need a rest. Son looked shattered yesterday. He looked so leggy. He looked drained. So you can understand it, but unfortunately, we have to analyze what we saw yesterday, and he was poor. He had a bad touches. His touches were awful. His shooting was off yesterday. Everything was weak. Everything he did was just his shooting was weak. His concentration was weak. His heading. I mean, he had a few chances himself to score goals. That one at the end, in extra time with the head, he could have just headed that anywhere and it would have gone in. And he headed it straight at the keeper. And it's like, come on, son, you're better than that. I know he's not the greatest at heading, but he is better than that.
Danny, do you think that left, that kind of, as Conte says, those number 10 positions that they play, do you think him being in that a bit central, a bit deeper on the left-hand side is getting that position gets the best out of him? Because all his whole career, he's always thrived either being a left winger or being a central striker. Do you think so? I don't know. I feel like him being clogged up in these central areas where there's not a lot of space to run into. Like, do you think that gets the best out of him?
No, I don't, because I think that, like you said, I think where we see his best performances is when he's got that space, when he's got space to run in behind, whether that's from the wing or centrally, right? When he's playing deeper, Son, you saw it yesterday, right? When he does play deeper, he's not aware of his surroundings as much. He loses the ball a bit more. His touch is more off. But when someone like Kane or when Eriksen used to be there, he used to play him in and runs in behind, or if it's from the wing, he's got time and space to just burn. He can burn players if he wants to. But I think yesterday, and that, just from what I saw, my perspective, there was an element of he just looked dead. He just looked completely shattered. And if it was up to me, I mean, I would have loved to have just given him a rest. But the problem is we can't, because we ain't got no one else. So I mean, they could have started Bergwijn and maybe brought on Son afterwards, because Harry Kane, you can't drop him. He's impossible to drop. He's our best player, and it's like if we don't drop him, we got no one. So
we're told even if he has one leg, he plays. So
100%. Yeah, I'm the same. But yeah, I just feel for a bit of Sonny and Kane, because they just get so much blame from Spurs fans whenever we have a poor performance. And even yesterday, I was saying myself that it was bad. They should be stepping up and stuff like that. But then when you actually go back and analyze it, and you look at it, and you're like, well, when you look at the whole picture, it's not their fault, because they haven't got anyone else to bring on to give them some time to just have a rest, have just even 10-minute break. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, when you're being overutilized, it's like if you were working right for someone, Sim, right, and you're being hammered 24/7 non-stop without a break, right, you're going to feel tired mentally and physically. It's not just the physical attributes. You're going to feel it in the mind as well, and you just sometimes need just a break from that, just a one game not to play, just so you can start to feel that freshness again. We saw it with Højbjerg when Højbjerg had his first, when he decided not to play him for the first time in the Premier League, right, since he's been here, and then he comes back for the Man City game and he had an absolute worldie. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like,
the thing is, though, Danny, look, it's not just Son and Kane.
No,
Hugo Reece, Højbjerg. And look, let's even bring it to Kulusevski and Bentancur, who were written off before they've even come in. Yeah. At the minute, we're developing a culture where anyone that is worth their salt, or anyone that's trying to come in and help this team, all of a sudden are being made a part of the problem. And all the players that don't add to this team are the ones that are being scapegoated every single time by fans focusing, debating if Son is world class, if Kane is world class, are Kulu and Bentancur, Juve bench warmers, this, that, and the other. Anyone of note at this club that we should be respecting and that we should be relying on to be able to get us out of this situation, we as fans always want to put it on them when it's not them. It's not them. It's the other players. And it goes deeper than that. You know, we all know where it goes to. It goes up to board level. But, like, you know, at the end of the day, no one talks about any of these other players. Everyone always lets them skate by and everything else. And we always put it on Kane, Son, Højbjerg, Lloris, the new signings and everything else. It's not them. It's the people that have been here for so long and proven time and time again. Yes, okay, they may be able to come in for one game and play a good game, but they cannot come in and do it on a consistent basis.
No.
And that's what the real problem is.
You know, you look at our best 11 at the moment, and Davis was a backup under Pochettino. Dyer was a backup under Pochettino. Winks was a backup under Pochettino. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? All these players were backups, and now they're first choice, and we're relying on them and expecting improvements. You know, expecting them to progress. We're never going to progress as long as these people are in our starting 11. That's just reality. They're not. They're never going to be good enough.
Spot on.
This football club is so painful to support, man.
It literally is, brother. It literally is, and it's just like
I blame my dad. I blame my dad.
Do you know what? Do you know what, Dave? Do you know what the worst thing is? My dad hardly watches football nowadays, and I have to sit here watching this dross, right? And he just sits there going, "Oh yeah, Tottenham is shit." I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks for that. You giving me this lifestyle of supporting this team." He just bailed out now as soon as it got shit.
Yeah, man. The only thing I will say is now at the end of the season, now we are out of the cup. Hopefully, the less games will help us. That's because hopefully there are more rest days, more time. Because our record, if you look at the stats, our record when we have had 5 or more days to prepare for a game is played 7, won 6, drawn 1, and that's including games against City and Liverpool. And when we've had less than 5 days to prepare, we've played 15 and lost 8 of them. So that shows a lot of it.
I think that does also highlight the incompetence and ineptitude of these players. You shouldn't need 5 days to prepare to play a team 8th of the championship. Realistically, and that's also why I know a lot of people have been kind of further voicing their Enoch out feelings with over the last 24 hours. And fair enough, I'd also like to see a new ownership in this club and see where we go with that. But I think on a night like last night, what can Enoch do? This is a Premier League team that are fighting for Champions League football up against a championship side. Those 11 players that we had on the pitch last night, 100 times out of 100 should be beating Middlesbrough. So I think I fully understand the Enoch out. I almost fully support it. But on nights like last night, I don't think it's a relevant argument to be making. Poor Moondogs in the live chat is saying he had a $5 on Doherty to be the first goal scorer. Or he had a bet on him. I think his frustration is understood. And just on the point of trophies at Tottenham, because we all know the story there. Since 2019, Tottenham, some selected results away from home in cup competitions. We drew 0-0 with Colchester, lost that game 4-3 on penalties. In the Europa League, we've been beaten 1-0 by Royal Antwerp. We've been beaten 3-0 by Dinamo Zagreb. In the Conference League, we've lost 1-0 to Paços de Ferreira. We've lost 1-0 to Vitesse. We've lost 2-1 to NS Mora. And now we've lost 1-0 to Middlesbrough. Now, that doesn't include home fixtures, such as the 7-2 defeat to Bayern, the get knocked out of the FA Cup by Norwich at home last season or the season before on penalties, and a lot of fixtures in there against League 1, League 2 teams where we've needed to bring Harry Kane on in the last couple of minutes to actually get us over the line there. For a team who used to be a cup team, we're an absolute calamity when it comes to those competitions. And look, I mean, we're almost out of time here. We haven't even had the chance to speak about next Monday's.
Just quickly, just to add on to what you were saying. Them results that you were talking about, the likes of the Zagrebs and then the Colchesters and stuff like that. The Colchester had it happened under Pochettino. A lot of them players that are in our starting 11, that make our starting 11 today, have played in nearly all of them fixtures. Mm-hmm. And then we wonder why we're seeing it today. Because they make our starting 11 now. And that's why it's dragging the whole club down and embarrassing it. We haven't done enough to refresh this whatsoever. But look, January was never ever going to be the time to do that either. For me, you have to wait till this summer, and for me, this summer will tell us everything we need to know what direction this club is really going in.
Well, look, the next direction we're going in is to play Everton on Monday night in a game where you wouldn't be a Tottenham fan if you're not expecting Dele Alli to score the winner. I mean, look, let's be honest. It is written in the stars. Everton, to be fair, played very well against Manchester City, and were robbed of a point with that horrific VAR decision that they've since been apologised to over. And to me, that just makes me feel like every decision on Monday night will probably go Everton's way, just to appease them a little bit. But Sim, we'll start with you. Everton at home on Monday night. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's going to be a very tough game. They are scrapping for their lives down there. They very nearly went into the relegation zone with Burnley getting a late defeat to Leicester. If with a draw, Everton would have been in the bottom 3. So they're no doubt about it. They are scrapping for their lives. And not just that, when you've got a wounded animal like Everton scrapping, they have quality. They've got I don't know if Calvert-Lewin's going to be fit, but they've got Calvert-Lewin, they've got Richarlison, Donny van den Beek now starting to play well. They've got decent defenders like Holgate and people like that. So when you've got a wounded animal and they're near the relegation scrap and they're fighting everything, you saw what Burnley did, fighting for everything. For every second ball, they're fighting. And it's going to be super difficult. It's going to be super, super difficult. And if we're not on top of our game, if we're not as fresh and sharp as we have been in games like against Leeds and City, and we don't immediately let Everton know that this is going to be a very difficult game for them, we're not going to allow them the time on the ball that we allowed Borough yesterday. We're going to get into their faces. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to get stuck in. We're going to get close to them. We were nowhere near the Borough players yesterday. They were able to do whatever they wanted with the ball. They were able to control the game. We need to let Everton know who are going to have better players. That they can't do that. If we are able to do that, we are able to suffocate them and dominate them, then of course we have the quality to win. There's no doubt about it. We have much superior players. If Kane and Son's on form, no doubt about it, we have the quality to win this game. But I am worried. Because I think Everton are they have no choice but to turn up for every game now. And Lampard, with the new manager as well, they're going to make sure that they're not letting, and then they can't let any game go past, which is why they very nearly got a point against Man City. They can't afford to say like, oh, Man City, we just give that up and that's a game gone. Every game matters now. When you're in a relegation scrap, every point matters. So they're going to be scrapping for every point. So I see it being a difficult day, unless we, start the game early, get an early goal, stamp our authority very early on. If we let the game drag on, I honestly I can see Everton getting something if we're not very careful. I really do.
Do you agree with that, Danny?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. To be honest with you, I think I'm quite worried for it because I think, like Sim said, they're really scrapping at the bottom there, and they actually played quite well against Man City, and they were unlucky that really in that game not to come away with a point. And like you said, Matt, it's just written, isn't it? It's gonna be one of those games where they're gonna probably have a low block team. They're gonna try and like hit us on the counter sort of thing, and we're going to struggle to break them down. And then what's going to happen is something's going to happen close towards the end. They're going to nick a goal from a set piece or something, and would it behold, it's going to be someone like Dele Alli or something. He's going to come on as a substitute. He's going to score the goal. He's not going to celebrate, and then they're going to win 1-0, and it's going to be another shit show for us. But look, I'm not expecting anything. I mean, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a very tough game, and no game in the Premier League's easy, but the way
when you're on our form.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's like another, but I know we've got for another 5 days now until we play them. But again, is it going to be enough for these players? Is having Winks and Højbjerg in the middle again, unless Bentancur comes back? I mean, I just pray Bentancur comes back because I cannot wait to see the back of Harry Winks. I just can't stand him, to be honest with you. I just don't want to see him wear a Spurs shirt again. And I think we've really missed Bentancur in the last couple of games. It's evident. It's so evident. I'm kind of getting worried for Skip, if I'm honest. I'm kind of getting worried for Skip because we haven't really heard much about his injury. And I said it last week. I think it's a lot more serious than a lot of us know. I don't know if you guys know anything more about it, but I think it's a lot more serious than what we've been kind of told. And I think that's why they haven't really said much about any progress on his injury or anything like that. I think it could even be a case where you don't see him for another month or so. It could well be.
I think the worst part about that is I don't think the medical team know either. From what I've been reading, it seems to be a case where they don't know when he'll be back. Conte's pushing him, and I think the worst thing that we could do, despite how much we need him, is rushing him back because that could just aggravate the injury even further. And I feel, David, that's another good point to kind of build on. We're hoping beyond hope that Rodrigo Bentancur will be back for this game. I think Slav said on Twitter that he bumped into him and he said he'd be back for the Everton game. So we're hoping that is true. But the same question I think we ask for every single game. David, should we switch to a 3 in midfield? And then a very different question is, will we?
Can we?
Yeah, that's the
question. Look, what I will say, if Winks plays, it means we only have 2 central midfielders available, so we can't switch to a 3. And if Rodrigo Bentancur and Højbjerg is fit, I think that's enough to be able to compete with this Everton midfield. Look, for me, it actually all hinges on Bentancur being fit. Some will be rested, Kane will be rested, Kulu will be rested. They'll be back kind of unconvinced. They'll be hurt with what's happened. And for me, it hinges all on Bentancur being back. If Winks is in there, He's up against Alan. He's up against Decore, who were absolutely magnificent against Man City by turning the ball over, by the way. So, they're just going to pick him every single time.
David,
he's completely taken out of the game.
They're going to make him look like a school kid.
Oh, I know.
Johnny Howson just made him look like a school kid.
That's why I said it. That's why I picked him out, because I know exactly what they're going to do to him. Whereas Bentancur and Højbjerg are in there, I believe they'll be able to deal with that 100%. Yeah. So for me, I think Bentancur comes back. I do believe we'll win that game. I'd so like Tottenham to lose to Middlesbrough and go out and beat Everton, 2 or 3-0 in an easy fashion that no Spurs fans expected it to happen. It's just the Tottenham way. It's the way we are this season. But for me, it's crucial that Bentancur is fit. If Bentancur is fit, we will not be able to get a grip in midfield defensively, and we won't be able to play any sort of balls properly going through to help our front men out and get them into the game. So we're going to see exactly what we've seen against Middlesbrough and stuff like that, where we're just going to be sitting back watching them pass the ball around us. You have Bentancur in. He can also help Højbjerg out defensively by turning the ball over, but he also has a good pass on him, so he'd be able to get us out and hit our front men very, very quickly and get them time and space on the ball. So for me, all hinges on Rigo Bentancur. What I will say is that big Colombian centre-back, is he fit?
No, I don't think Mina. I think Mina's going to be out for a while.
We struggle massively from set pieces. Middlesbrough could have put us to bed yesterday through 2 set pieces that came close. Leeds, the first opportunity they had in the game in the first minute against Tottenham came from a set piece. And the list goes on and on and on with the goals.
All right, 2 free headers, didn't they? 2 free headers in the box.
And it's been all season long, though. Even under Nuno, we were sitting here. Why do we keep conceding from set pieces? If he is back fit and he plays, well, then I fear, because no one's going to be able to challenge him and he's going to have a field day. If he's not out, well, then hopefully set pieces don't become a factor within this game.
Yeah, hopefully. I think, look, as much as I love Christian Romero, as much as he's one of the best defenders we're lucky to have, as Luton just go back ahead against Chelsea, I've enjoyed that. Romero has not been good at defending set pieces. He lost by me in that game against Burnley. I think he's been very rash, very poor.
He lost one yesterday as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Just to remind everyone, Chelsea are losing to Luton. But the best thing, or the worst thing about Spurs at the moment, is we're so unpredictable that we have become predictable. And I mean, every Spurs fan told you after we beat Manchester City we were going to lose to Burnley, and every Spurs fan told you after we battered Leeds we were going to lose to Middlesbrough. And it's at the point, I tweeted it out last night, when we lost that game, I almost wasn't angry. It was just that acceptance of resignation. It was that, I mean, look, this happens. This is what's. But on that positive note, let's get our score predictions for the game against Everton on Monday, who, might I add, are playing tomorrow night in the FA Cup. It is only against Bournemouth, so it's not the most tough game, but they have 2 days less rest than Spurs going into this one. David, we'll start with you. Prediction for Monday against Everton.
I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham.
Yeah.
Two,
Sim?
2-1,
Yes.
sure.
2-1.
Look, we lost last game, so a win. So now it's time to win, isn't it?
We'll
win against 15 games. Literally, we haven't won consecutive games in 15 games now. It's win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose in 15 in a row now.
So by the history of Tottenham, basically, is we'll win this game, we'll get battered by United, right? So,
oh god, yeah,
yeah.
As long as Arsenal fall on a win, that's all I want for the rest of the season.
Yeah, true.
Oh god. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I think we'll probably just about scrape it. If Bentancur's there, I'm very confident about it.
Man, he's such a good footballer. I love him so much. I might as well keep it consistent and go for a full house. I'll go for 2-1 Spurs as well. Everyone, make sure to get your predictions in the live chat. We have Adrian saying 4-1 to Spurs. The Pixelated Gamer says 2-1. Colin Turner says 3-1, possibly 3-2 to Spurs. Adam says bring back Gareth Bale. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I agree.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get some positivity back in. Lads, absolute pleasure. We've ran a little bit over time, and that's what happens when Spurs are being Spurs. David, let people know where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, you can find me over at the Irish Hotspur. Just recently smashed 6K, so the big push for 7K is on. So if anyone wants to help out on that drive, I'd appreciate it. Get over there and smash that subscribe button. But look, today's not about that. Today I just want to put a message out there. It's just, look, we may not be enjoying the style of football. We may not be enjoying the management or the players. We may not be enjoying the owners. But But let's not forget what we really fell in love with when it comes to this club. The name, the white jersey, the cockerel, the history. You know, let's not forget that. I know times are tough, but keep loving this club behind it all.
I love that. I love that. A lovely message to end the show on. Danny, where can the viewers find you?
Well, you can find my mug on Tottenham on Tour with the one and only Mr. Brian Daigle himself, Brian Allen, Adam Clark. So, yeah, come and find us on Tottenham on Tour. Sim,
what's coming up on WeAreTottenhamTV this week?
Well, you know, we got to gear up for the Everton game coming up on Monday night. I'm sure we're going to have some lots of FIFA content as well. We're going to do some more live streams, getting fans' opinion. But I want to know, I'm going to get fans' opinion potentially on where people think we have improved since Jose Mourinho, because at the moment, what I'm seeing, have we improved since Jose left? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, plenty to come this week before the big game on Monday, which I'm going to be at the game and my brother's going to be with Rez in the studio.
I love it. I'm going to look forward to that watch along. I had hoped to get to that Jose point on the show tonight, but there's too much Middlesbrough chatter to get through. For myself, you can find me on YouTube at Matt Hayes Tottenham blog, linked in the title alongside David's channel as well. Or you can find me on Twitter at Matt Hayes THFC. I'm going to be doing a lone watch for Brian Hill tonight as Valencia take on Athletic Bilbao in the second leg of the Carabao Cup, Copa del Rey semi-final. So Gil potentially into a final already. I'm hoping Bilbao will be keeping a close eye.
Every player who leaves Tottenham wins a trophy.
Literally, it's honestly, even Vincent Janssen went out and won the league at Monterrey. It is the most strange phenomenon. But look, let's hope Brian Gill does it, because it'll be a good improvement for his career. But to everyone who's tuned in to the 266 that are still left watching, do make sure to smash that subscribe button for We Are Tottenham TV, the #1 place for Tottenham content on YouTube. And make sure to hit that like button as well. Let's get that up to 100. But for now, from me, from these three wonderful gents, as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you
Spurs. Oh, apologies. I was meant to do this.